Hello and welcome to Shark Source Podcast. It has been quite a while since we've done our last show. Our last show was actually done before the playoffs started. So we have a lot to get to, but I just want to say we're not going to be covering the playoffs really because I'm sure you've heard it from other sources. So we're pretty much only going to talk about our reactions to the Blues winning the Stanley Cup. That's going to be it for the playoff coverage. And we have a lot to get to today. So we're going to be talking about Blues winning the Cup, of course, the draft. We're talking about first the trades at the draft and just the trades that have been made recently in general. Then we'll get a little bit into the picks in the draft and, what we thought of all that. We're finally going to, or not finally, but then we're going to talk about a preview of free agency. And then we're going to talk about a few other topics. Maybe schedule, and I will also talk about the Sharks prospect scrimmage, which I'm going to tonight. So that's all next on the Shark Source podcast. Okay, so first we were talking about Blues winning the Stanley Cup. So going into Game 7, I really thought Bruins would take it, just based on how dominating they were in Game 6. And they really came out of the gate in Game 7 dominating, but Binnington really stood tall. Shaden, what were your thoughts about that series and that game especially?
Well, it was a great series. It was entertaining. There's tons of action, and you had a sense of feeling that the cup can go either way. Obviously, it was a back and forth series, and I think some people saw a mile away that Blues might win the series because they've just been on this amazing run ever since Bennington and Berube got behind there, and it wasn't really a shock to me. And they have talent, and they won because of speed and skill and size. And the Blues are, the Blues are just one of those teams where I feel like anything possible can happen. Like everyone said before, they were dead last on January 3rd, and they clawed their way back up. So it's great for that city. It's great for that franchise. So it was an entertaining final, and I'm happy Boston won, of course.
All right, so for Sharks fans, this was sort of tough. I was rooting for Boston, of course, because of the Blues beating the Sharks, and especially the way in which they beat us. I do think that they probably were the better team, and we were definitely outcoached, but they really beat us with physicality, and that's something that DeBoer really failed to adjust to. Game 1, the Sharks beat the Blues quite easily, and one thing that one of the announcers, I believe on the NBC broadcast said, but it might have been Sportsnet, I'm not sure, but he said after Myers' goal, this is speed that I don't think the St. Louis Blues have seen yet. And the Sharks really played with speed in that game. But pretty much from Game 2 on, the Sharks resorted back to their old dump and chase play style, which had been effective in the past, but was completely ineffective against the Blues because the Blues are a very good defensive team, and they would just break it out, and the Sharks would really be unable to get any offense going. But like Shaden says, size really was important too, along with their speed and skill. So I don't know. I guess I thought Boston would win after their dominating Game 6 performance, but the Blues really showed that they were the better team in that game.
So I'll add on to my comment later, but we have a trade.
Really?
Danny and I were talking about this before, but Miller has been sent to Buffalo now. It's a second in 2021 and a fifth in, sorry, it's a conditional fifth in 2022. So, Buffalo gets another right-handed defenseman. Of course, they got Montour in February. And of course, Vegas sheds more cap because they're over it by what? They're over it by $7 million. And of course, the trade of Halba, where we get to on later. But so another trade in the NHL.
Yeah, that's so interesting. We were just before the game talking about what would, I wonder if there will be a trade during the podcast.
Yeah.
And it did happen. So that's interesting. We'll get to all the other trades later. But Vegas, we'll get to that all later. But the fact that they've had to shed cap after only being in the league for 3 years is pretty ridiculous. So
Yeah.
we'll get to that soon. But first, I just want to, final comments on the Blues. Here's a question that I have to ask you. What do you think is do you think teams are going to try and replicate the Blues style? Because recently people have been trending towards smaller and more speed, sort of like the 2016 and 2017 Penguins. Do you think it's going to be different now after the Blues won?
No, not necessarily. You know, sure, St. Louis had size, but they players with those size still had speed and skill. Of course, Maroon was a big factor. Pietrangelo was a big factor. Parayko, still a young defenseman, was easily physically active in that series. So I don't think that transition the game away from the young speed and skill. But I do think that guys like Maroon, of course, Edmondson, and those guys will start getting a bit more interest in free agency, maybe like a Boyle, of course. But I don't think it'll change much. But it still shows that you may need still a bit of size to win a championship.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that was reflected in the draft, and we'll get to that later. But size was really an issue in the draft. We saw it with Caulfield. We'll get to it later. I just want to make note of it now. But first, we have a ton of trades to talk, and I think we have to start with the biggest trade, in my opinion, PK to Nashville. So, Shaden, what were your thoughts on this deal?
Well, when we heard PK was getting moved, some of us might have thought was surprised, but I think we kind of saw it coming because, of course, Nashville doesn't have a lot of cap, and you want to go after free agent. Of course, we all knew that they're trying to go after Matthew Shane. Now, the return is nothing special, of course. 2 second-round picks that might be mid-picks because New Jersey could possibly make the playoffs this year. And, number 5 defenseman at best, and a decent prospect for Subban, which is not a lot, considering that he's got traded for Shea Weber, who's still a very good defenseman in this league. It might seem as a shock, but this is purely a salary dump, and New Jersey still has 21 million cap space, so they're obviously the only team that will be able to take on Subban. So, that's basically much it. Not a lot back. New Jersey gets another great player, and they basically just traded Larson and a couple of scraps for maybe two top 20 players in this league, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, I honestly think that despite the fact that they needed to clear cap space, I still think that the Predators really lost this trade.
Yeah.
And the reason is because I think giving up as Tampa proved, I think clearing cap space is a lot easier than people seem to think. And they could have they said no other team was willing to retain no other team was willing to take him without retaining salary and getting a better return. I still think they could have gotten at least a first from the Devils, like a conditional first next year for Subban. But even if you don't have to trade from the Devils, there's nothing wrong with retaining $3 million. You can just get rid of some other player with $3 million, and as long as you get a good return. Now, I still think it'll be worth it for them if they do manage to get Duchesne, and they have currently projected around $13 million in cap. So while they do have some guys to re-sign, I think that they'll be all right, and they'll be able to. If Duchesne comes, this would help the team. But if you're a Devils fan, you got to be really happy with this deal, and with the weekend in general, getting Jack Hughes and then PK Subban, and having just a solid draft in general. And, I think this bringing in Subban should increase the chances that Taylor Hall stays.
Yeah.
And just want to go off that, Shaden. If that the Devils find themselves in a Panarin-like situation where Hall, despite bringing in Subban, is not signed a contract and it's getting close to the deadline, Do you think the Devils should move him, or do you think they should go for it like the Blue Jackets did?
Well, it's tricky because we don't know. Hall wants to make the playoffs, of course, and I think he said that. I think it was today, might have been yesterday, but Hall said he just wants to make the playoffs. He wants to stay, and if it really depends on the trade deadline, because that's when we heard about the Bobrovsky and Panarin to Florida rumors. If the Devils find themselves in the same situation as Columbus, I wouldn't really go for it because, of course, Columbus got knocked out in the second round. Yes, they beat Tampa, but I don't think that had any acquisitions of Duchamp. I think that had to do with the system Toro did. But anyways, if Hall is leaving dry first, you're giving up all these draft picks basically just to go in for a couple rounds. Like, I don't really see the point. Just you're gonna have a lot of cap if Hall goes to free agency, and that's basically your own trade deadline because you can sign two free agents there, so you could probably add a couple small pieces, but I wouldn't really go all in for it.
All right. Now we're going to move on to the next biggest trade, in my opinion, and of course it relates to the San Jose Sharks. We have the Patrick Marleau to Carolina trade and subsequent buyout. He was bought out, I believe, yesterday or the day before, something like that. So what are your thoughts? We'll look at it from the Leafs perspective and the Sharks perspective. So what were your thoughts on that trade?
Well, first of all, the Leafs, I think we all agree they got screwed. Even though that they're trying to get rid of a bad contract, you only got back at 6 and they give us first. So, Leafs obviously desperate to, shed some cap because they signed Martin. And of course, they extended Johnson's captaincy for around the same salary as Marleau's contract. But, Carolina can take in Marleau's contract because they still have crap tons of cap. They have to sign Aho, but they're gonna be fine. And I wasn't really surprised they got on Marleau, but they got. There's nothing really much to comment on. I think we're all certain that you'll probably go back to San Jose, or at least for the West. And Carolina gets a first round pick, and Toronto sheds cap, and they basically get nothing back. So
I sort of agree with you. I heard a lot of Leafs, media, Leafsnet, Toronto Sports Network, TSN, justifying this trade from the Leafs' perspective, saying, well, they had to give up a first to clear cap. They got themselves in this bad situation. I still don't think that they needed to give up such a valuable pick for just 1 year. If I were the Leafs, I would have honestly just taken the contract for another year. And they can trade. They've just signed Johnsson and Kapanen to deals. They could have traded one of them and then gotten assets. And then after 1 more year, the cap is from Marleau's contract runs out, and then they don't have to give up their first. They can use it on a more valuable player, maybe at the deadline.
Right.
From Carolina's perspective, it's a great move. Pretty much they only lose money, they get a first. And since they have so much in cap space, and their new owner is incredibly rich, one of the richest owners. So I honestly think there's nothing negative about this deal from the Hurricanes' perspective. And for the Sharks, I think, because here's the thing, it's no secret Marleau wants to become a San Jose Shark again. His family has already moved back to the Bay Area. So I think that fact is interesting. So his family moved back. Therefore, we know that they probably aren't going to want to move again just for 1 year. Marleau wants to come to San Jose and only San Jose. So if you're Doug Wilson, I would not pay him more than $1 million. I would try and pay him less than $1 million because he has no leverage. He wants to come to San Jose, but we don't need him. really. So I would pay him just pretty much bare minimum. He's already making a lot from that buyout. So I think we should not pay him pretty much anything. But
would you rather have Marlowe or Pavelski back?
I'd rather have Pavelski back, but I don't think I don't think bringing in Marlowe is going to stop Pavelski from coming in. Because Marlowe's such a cheap deal, I don't think it affects it, and because we've cleared cap space so that we can afford both. We'll get to Pavelski in a bit, but I don't think. I think if anything, Marlowe coming back will make him more likely to re-sign with us. So we'll see. But anyway, so we'll see what happens. I'm sure a lot of Sharks fans will be happy to see him back. And honestly, if as long as we're not paying him too much, I'll be happy to see Marlowe back too. So now we're going to move on to the next trade that involves the Sharks. We're talking about the Justin Braun trade. So the Sharks traded Justin Braun to the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for a second-round pick and a third-round pick. I'll talk about it in a minute, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't watch a lot of Sharks games, so I wouldn't really know much about Braun. But I think he told me that he's reliable defensively, and I think that for Braun, I think he's in the 30s. I'm not certain, but I think he's a bit overpaid for as a second pairing guy that sometimes gets the most of the third. And the Sharks get 2 picks back, so Philly wants to upgrade their defense, but the Sharks gave a second for Braun for an overpaid defenseman, in my opinion. I think that's a win for them. So obviously you know more about Braun than me, so.
Yeah, here's what I think. A lot of NHL fans, I would say most NHL fans, have said that the Sharks won this trade. I really don't think that the Sharks won this trade because Braun is he was so reliable. Now this year he did have a down year, but the thing is he was playing with usually Burns or Carlson, and it's no secret that those players aren't exactly known for their defensive prowess. They're more of offensive defensemen. So Braun has looked bad, but a lot of times that's because he's been hung out to dry by his defensive partners. So I was not a fan of this trade, but I do understand why we had to do it. We needed to clear cap space to hopefully keep Pavelski because we overpaid Carlson. I'll just get to that right now since we're on it. I think that was a terrible deal. Anyone who follows my account knows I'm a huge disliker of Carlson's defensive play. Now, I do think he will have a better offensive year this year, but I just think that was way too long a contract, way too much. So, and I'm worried it's going to cost us our captain and our goal-scoring leader, Pavelski, because we won't be able to pay him as much as some other teams. So, yeah, that's tough. But, all right, we'll just keep going through the trades. Next one is I would say the next biggest. I'm not really going in chronological order, just sort of the important ones. What are your thoughts on the Trouba trade? Trouba to the Rangers.
Well, we all knew Trouba wasn't going to stay in Winnipeg, and we knew that they're in cap hell. So the Rangers get a stud defenseman to keep adding to their young list of players, and this rebuild in New York is going much faster than people anticipated. And Winnipeg didn't really get back much. They got back their 20th pick in Neil Pionk, who's a decent defenseman, don't get me wrong, but Winnipeg basically paid not like a first and Trouba and Lemieux for Pionk and a couple of games of Kevin Hayes, who's now in Philly on an Albatross deal. But it's not a good move by Winnipeg, but they had to do it, and they still have great defensemen there. They still have Josh Morrissey. They still have Dustin Bufflin, Sammy Niku's coming up. Of course, they have to let go of Tyler Myers, but the back end might suffer a bit, but I don't really expect Winnipeg to do as well. I don't know. It's gonna be complicated, but the Rangers are gonna be amazing. Well, I wouldn't say amazing, but they're gonna be better because they just got Capo Caco, and they add a top paid defenseman Trouba. So that's a big win for the Rangers. If they don't have Panarin, they could be a dark horse for the playoffs.
I think if they add Panarin, they will make the playoffs. Just also because they have a lot of other depth too, and the division I would say is pretty well balanced. And just bombshell just dropped right now, and I'm pretty upset. Kevin Kurtz, who is a beat reporter for the San Jose Sharks for The Athletic, just spoke with Joe Pavelski's agent, Dan Plant. The overwhelming sense now is that Pavelski will be moving on to another team as a free agent. It sounds like the end of an era in San Jose. So, just hearing that's really tough, honestly. I don't blame him at all. This is not like the John Tavares thing where I think Islanders fans were completely justified in their hate of him. But I don't hate Pavelski for this. I think it's honestly Carlson and Doug Wilson are to blame, because I think that trade pretty much closed the door on us being able to match other teams' offers. Now, if he signs a cheap deal that we could have matched, then maybe he just didn't want to play for us. But I'm pretty upset that Pavelski, it looks like, is going to be gone.
But I'm pretty sure that the reason why he didn't sign Pavelski, because I'm pretty sure Pavelski wanted a 4-year deal, and the Sharks are only offering 3. So
again, I don't know why we wouldn't give him a 4. I mean, we gave Carlson an 8-year deal. You'd think the least we could do for our captain, who led our team in goals, and was just sacrificed his body over and over in the playoffs, the least we could do is give him a 4-year deal. And honestly, if we win the cup, who cares if it becomes a bad contract in the 4th year? So, as tough as that is for, I'm covering him, but I'm also a big fan of the team. So it's really sad for me that he's going. But that said, we have $14 million in cap space. Meyer, there's no chance he leaves. We can match any offer sheet. So that's good. And even after we sign Meyer, I think there's a good chance we maybe can bring in someone else as an unrestricted free agent. I don't really know who it would be, but maybe like a 1-year deal for Wayne Simmons or something like that. He'd probably want a longer contract, but I'd like to bring in someone to sort of help fill the hole that's going to be left by Pavelski in this offense.
Right. Well, another thing about Pavelski, of course, I believe he's the captain since 2015, I would want to say.
Yeah, something like
that. Because I know that the McLellan strip.
15 or 16.
Yeah, 15,
he was
16.
Yeah, he was the captain when we made it to the Cup final.
And we all know that McLellan stripped Thornton as his captaincy, so I would assume Thornton gets it back.
If they give the captaincy to Carlson, I'm actually done. Okay? Don't even think about it, DeBoer. I know you want to. Don't do it. Okay? I would that's interesting. I didn't even think about captaincy. I would like to give it to Hertl. The reason is Thornton, I know he's our leader and but Hertl's the future of this team. He's I think one of our best forwards. I would like him to be captain. I also wouldn't mind Couture being captain, how clutch he was in the playoffs, or Burns maybe could be captain, or even Vlasic. But if I had to pick my top choice, it would be Hertl to be captain. But we'll find out, I guess, after it's official. I don't know where Pavelski is going, but I'm hoping
I think they said that's between Tampa or Dallas. So.
Yeah, I also heard Chicago was possible, but yeah, I guess I hope it's Tampa, so it's not in our conference. But Probably the worst part is if we do win the cup, because I still think it's possible. I do think it's possible that we could win the cup this year. That Pavelski wouldn't be a part of it. So
Right.
yeah. But anyway, let's move on from Pavelski, and we'll talk about. So we talked about the Trouba trade already. What is there any other trades that? What was your next most important trade you thought that happened? You think?
Well, there's still a couple.
Yeah,
There's
there's quite.
JT Miller.
Yeah, I was actually gonna think of that. Let's do this one.
Okay. So people are actually saying that Vancouver lost his trade. For me, I'm kind of in the middle of this because, yeah, they gave a first round pick for a guy that gets, 50, 60 points. The thing is, their JT Miller, I would assume, is going to play with Elias Pettersson. And Miller did play some time Stamkos and did damn well. Now, the first round pick, it's conditional, so I believe if you don't make the playoffs in 2020, it's a 2021 pick. Now, if they don't make the playoffs in 2021,
it's not protected.
Betting because you're probably giving up a top 10 pick for Miller if you're not making the playoffs in 2021. So, I think the Canucks will be a playoff team by that time. Of course, they have Hughes and Ulavy on the back end. They put Coulson. I don't think he'll be in North America at the time, and he have a stud goalie, so it's the base, Tampa sheds cap, and I'm shocked that they got a first round pick. It's a puzzling move, but I think the Canucks would have been better off signing a guy like Nyquist, to be honest, though.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I think. I don't think the Canucks are going to make the playoffs next year, but I think there's a good chance they'll make it in 2021. I think from the Lightning's perspective, it's a great deal. Miller's good, but they can now easily re-sign Braden Point and now bring in maybe Pavelski. Yeah. So I think from their perspective, it's good. And then also Ryan Callahan. It's too bad for him that he has to retire because of some back issue. But another huge cap clearing move for Tampa.
Right. And I just think it's just a coincidence how as soon as Tampa has to sign Point and is in a huge cap crunch that Callahan has this career-ending back injury. Now, I do think that Callahan has been playing out, has had his injury for a while, but I think it's sheer coincidence, to be honest, though.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right. Anyway, let's move on to next trades. The rest were pretty minor. I guess I don't want to go too much today. Burakovsky to Colorado for 2 picks, a second and a third. What are your thoughts on that one?
Of course, Colorado just shed, I believe, Soderberg to Arizona a couple of days ago. Burakovsky is a good middle 6'4". Yeah, he had a bad year, but he's still a good winger, and he can score goals. And now that Colorado's going to be scary next year, and especially since they have so much cap room, easily sign Nexus. I have a few other major players in free agency, and I would be scared of the Avs next year.
Yeah, for sure. They're going to have a ton of cap space. They can easily bring in more guys. And they'll have no trouble re-signing Cale Makar when he comes up, or Landeskog when he comes up in 2 years. So, or Yost when he comes up in years. So they're in a great situation. And I think let's just try and do rapid fire for the next one because we do want to move on. So let's just very quickly go through some of these trades. What about Erik Haula to Carolina?
Like we said about the Miller trade earlier, like the Colin Miller, biggest sheds cap, and of course, Carolina got Marlo bottom out, and now they added their top 6 forward, and they still have tons of cap to work with. So adding another forward to Carolina had a great year, which I don't think will happen again next year. I think they'll make the playoffs, but not as deep, like a third round exit. But Carolina adds a solid forward to their group again.
Yep, I really think that this was a great move for Carolina, and Vegas is being forced into it by their cap. All right, we'll move to the next trade that we briefly mentioned it. Carl Soderberg to Arizona for Kevin Connaughton in a third.
Basically, same thing. Arizona has trouble scoring goals. I believe right now, Carl Soderberg beat any Coyote in scoring, which is kind of interesting. But they added another center. They desperately needed a goal scorer, and they added a great top 6 forward. And they gave up very little, third round pick and Kevin Connaughton. So a solid deal by the Coyotes.
Yeah, I completely agree that Coyotes had a nice deal here. I don't really know why the Avalanche traded Soderberg, because they already had a ton of cap space. But you know what? I think that I think Arizona should be in a I think it makes them better next year, which they're still trying to get over the hump and make the playoffs for the first time since 2012. All right, Hurricanes get Anton Forsberg, Gustav Forsling from the Hawks for Calvin DeHaan and Alexi Saarela.
Basically a cap dump, and I do think Carolina had interest in Howe before, so DeHaan didn't have a good year in Carolina. He goes to Chicago, who else got Mata, and Forsberg's probably back next year since Mrazek is not returning. And Forsberg's still a good 6 defenseman, so Chicago wins that trade, but Carolina gets that defenseman goalie either.
Yes, I completely agree that that Chicago wins this trade, but I don't think the Hurricanes did too bad. Bringing in Forsberg is interesting because it looks like Mrazek is probably not going to re-sign there in free agency. We'll get to that a bit later when we do our free agency thing. So Forsberg, I don't think he's ready to be an NHL starter, so maybe the Hurricanes will bring in another goalie. Very quickly, just keep going through. Ryan Hartman to the Stars for Tyler Pitlick. And interesting fact about this one, Hartman, I don't know if he knows yet, but he's as of yesterday, he still didn't know because he tweeted out recently he was going off the grid just to relax by a lake in his summer home, and then he got traded. So he still may not.
I'm pretty sure he didn't get qualified by the Stars too.
Yep. So they're sort of wasting his signing rights actually because since he was not qualified, so he could become an unrestricted free agent. Now most players do tend to sign with the team that trades for their signing rights, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with Hartman. But
yeah,
that's that trade. I'm only mentioning this tiny trade because it's a former San Jose Barracuda. Adam Helweka traded from the Predators to the Devils. So former Barracuda. So I watched him a lot at the Shark Tank.
And tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Helweka actually just got bought out the other day.
Could have been. I will check it right now. I'm not exactly sure why they would buy him out because he's on such a cheap deal. No, I don't think. Not Cap Friendly does not have him bought out. So he could possibly crack the. Actually, I think he will crack the NHL roster. Maybe he's only 23. He had let's see, in 41 AHL games with the Roadrunners, he had 31 points, and in 24 with the Admirals, he had 19 points. So I certainly don't think that's too bad. And on the Devils, they're they're not a very good team, so, or a very deep team rather. So I think he could crack them. And if he doesn't, he'll certainly help the Binnington Devils because they were pretty bad last year in the AHL. All right.
And yeah, you're right. He wasn't bought out, but his contract was terminated, so that was just my benefit.
Oh, so they didn't qualify him, or
no? So his contract terminated. So I'm guessing he's gonna go to the KHL or somewhere like that.
Okay, well, he's from Canada, so probably not. I would guess sign somewhere. Maybe he comes back to the Sharks. Who knows? So I don't. And again, I still don't. Do you understand future considerations? I still don't understand them.
I think that it's like the minimum requirement to complete a trade. So if you're basically trading an ECHL or a pretty bad AHL to a team, future considerations is something like we'll probably grant this later, even though they probably won't. So
yeah,
just kind of like Cliff Poo, where he's done enough in the AHL, so you're basically trading him for free.
Yeah. So and since they terminated his contract, it's pretty much like the trade didn't even happen, because unless they Devils re-sign him to a cheaper deal or something like that. Then we had a few draft pick trades. I'm not really going to get into those. I don't really think they're interesting. Now, I'll do this one because it's the Sharks. We traded Francis Perron to the Canucks for Tom Pyatt, and there were picks involved. We did move up. I still think that was a terrible trade because he had 47 points in 63 games on the Barracuda. Meanwhile, Tom Pyatt and Francis Perron is still young. Tom Pyatt is 32, and last season, he had 19 points. So I don't really know why we did it other than to move up in the draft.
And I'm pretty sure that should be it. Of course, we briefly touched on Matter for Cahoon. And I guess Niskanen basically overpaid second pair defense for a really solid third pair defenseman. So I think that should be it for trades.
Yeah, one more. Joe Quenneville's son, traded to the Blackhawks for John Hayden. So that's interesting. He will play for his dad's former team. And now that is it for the trades. So let's get into free agency. So obviously the two biggest names have to be Panarin and Bobrovsky, the two from the Blue Jackets, and then, of course, Duchesne and many others. But we're just going to get started with those three. Where do you think each of them end up?
I think Panarin and Bobrovsky both head to Florida. I think that for certain, from the start of February, we all knew that Bobrovsky was going to go to Florida. Panarin's interesting because we just recently heard today that the Rangers aren't going to bid more than $11 million for Panarin. So I don't really think he's going to go to the Rangers. The Islanders, maybe. It really depends what happens with Lee, who might go to Chicago, of course. But I just think both go to Florida because there's no state tax, I'm pretty sure, in Florida. So they make more money, say if they're going to go to the Rangers, or say somehow they go to Tampa, which of course never happened. But you know what I mean. But Florida, if they do get Panarin, because I'm pretty sure they're going to get Bobrovsky, they're going to be a great team next year because, of course, they already added Hoffman last summer. They're trying to trade James Reimer, and they're trying to reform their team. So adding those two studs are going to make the Panthers huge contenders. Maybe not for the cup just yet, but I honestly think they're a playoff contender. And Duchesne, I know he's left Montreal, and I'm pretty sure of Nashville. I would assume he goes to Nashville just because I think that was the whole purpose of the Subban trade. And, of course, Duchesne's a country boy, so I would think that he would love to go to Nashville and be their number one center there.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. I think the two from Columbus are both going to go to Florida, and I think that Duchesne, I think he'll go to Nashville. So we'll see what happens there. I really think that Florida's going to be in a great situation. I think that they've been on the rise for a while, but they've just had really bad luck with injuries. But now that they've finally their players from their rebuild are all in their primes now, so they should be contending, especially in a division where I think it's really weak. they've got Tampa and Boston, who are two really elite teams. You've got Toronto, who I think is good, but I definitely don't think they're as good as everyone says they are. I think they're probably like top, I think they're, I don't know, some between top 15 and top 10, something like that. But I think the Panthers should probably compete with the Leafs for the third spot in the division or a wild card spot. So with those additions, and Nashville needed offense, and they're gonna get that offense with Duchesne if he goes there. All right, any more thoughts on free agency?
Well, we briefly touched on Pavelski. I don't know if the Sharks are really after this if he can really get anyone, but Edmonton's talking to you guys. Brett Conway is one of them. I believe they talked to Donskoy's agent. Of course, you know Donskoy well for the Sharks, so you can probably tell me your thoughts on him, I would guess. Because if he does come to Edmonton, I would assume he'll play with a guy like Draisaitl on the second line as a right winger.
Yeah, I've heard that Donskoy, there's very little chance he resigns with the Sharks, just because I don't think he thinks there's a fit, and it's fair because we've just been a pretty deep team, so I don't think that we've been giving him as much playing time as he wants. So I could totally see him going to Edmonton. I think that would be a nice fit, and maybe they play him with McDavid just if they want to spread out the wealth, and then I think he'd have a great season. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with Donskoy. And I guess since we're on the topic of Edmonton, I just wanted to talk about the Puljujarvi situation. So Puljujarvi has said he wants a trade. Do you think the Oilers trade him, and what do you think the return is?
Well, some fans have the debate if it's really him or his agent. For me, I can see where he's coming from when he wants that because he hasn't been properly managed at all. But I don't think it's just Puljujarvi hating, I wouldn't say hate, but disliking the city. I believe it's more of his agent because I think his agent knows that there isn't a fit, and Puljujarvi hasn't really done anything here. And I'll tell you for certain that Puljujarvi does not hate Edmonton. There's countless videos of him playing around with the kids in ODR outdoor rinks here, and he's a lovable guy in the city. Now, if there's, of course, the rumors that he could go to Europe, Holland has stated that he's not going to trade Puljujarvi just for the sake of being traded unless it makes sense for them, which I agree because you don't want to get back a third or fourth for Puljujarvi. No, he wants to make a hockey deal, and if there's no deal to be found, Puljujarvi can go to Europe, and Edmonton basically loses nothing because Puljujarvi hasn't really done it for the past couple of years. Now, Holland does have experience in this because I believe it was 2017 where after the season started to go to the KHL, Holland said okay, didn't go, and they actually agreed to terms later on in the season. Now, if there was a trade for Puljujarvi, it would probably be an underrated young player, just like Puljujarvi for Puljujarvi. And one of the players I would be keen on taking is Julius Honka from Dallas. He's still a young defenseman with a right-hand shot, and Edmonton needs more right-hand shot defensemen that's young. So that's probably one of the deals I'd be interested in. Another rumored deal could be a guy like Gaston Heinen, who's an RFA in Boston for Puljujarvi. I know Tampa has some interest in. Oh my God, if Tampa gets Puljujarvi, I swear. And Carolina makes a bunch of sense because Puljujarvi and Aho played together in the World Juniors. So Puljujarvi, I don't think there's much value. If so, it's just going to be a striking player for a striking player. But I would think he goes to Europe in September.
Yeah, I sort of disagree. I don't think they'll trade him, but I think he's not going to go. I think him and his agent are bluffing. And I'm so glad you brought up that Ken Holland fact about Athanasia because I forgot that was him. And I don't think Puljujarvi wants to go back to Europe. I think he wants to play in the NHL, and I think he wants to play for the Oilers. And I think if Holland is just patient, eventually he will play for the Oilers. They'll get a deal, and that will be that. And he won't try and get traded. So we'll see what happens on that front. Now, I just wanted to quickly say I don't really feel like talking about the offer sheets too much, and that's just because it has received so much coverage, and yet we pretty much never have an offer sheet. We've only had 2, I believe, in history, offer sheets that have not been matched. So I don't think there's really much to offer sheets until they reduce the penalties, I think, for signing them. I don't think you're going to see many.
Right.
Yep, and sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking. I know one offer sheet was Edmonton offer sheet Penner, which is just, I just can't believe we did that. I just don't know what the other offer sheet is. I know Calgary, the last offer sheet actually signed was O'Reilly to Calgary. I'm pretty sure it was a match, but I think the reason I never went through was because O'Reilly would need to be on waivers. I'm not too sure right now.
Yeah, actually, here we go. I just pulled it up. Signed offer sheets. Now, I don't know because they used to have them differently. So since 2005, I think, is when we're talking about. So since 2005 and the lockout, Penner is the only one that's been accepted. Now, or that's the only one that has not been matched. But in the past, there were some. So Matthias Oland, I believe the Leafs got him from the Canucks. That was matched. Chris Granton was one. So pretty much, we haven't had one recently. Is the point. Right. So and we probably won't have one for a while. Okay, now we're pretty much going to get close to the end, so we have a few more to go. We're going to talk about the draft. So just some general thoughts about it. I don't think first day was very unsurprising, and I just want to say that we'll talk about, I'm bringing back the point we mentioned earlier, size. So the Blues were a big team who won, and I think that's a big reason that Cole Caulfield dropped as low as he did. You saw teams like the Hawks picking Kirby Dach over and he's a big guy, at third. And Cole Caulfield just fell because even though he was more skilled than a lot of the players who went ahead of him, teams were willing to just ignore that because they wanted someone who was big. Did you have any thoughts on that or just the draft in general?
Well, I am shocked, first of all, that Dach went as high as 3. I think the highest I've seen Dach go was 5, and that's where I had him around now. I think Chicago completely blew their chance on Bowen Byram. You already have so many forwards up front, like the Breakcat, and you got Stroh from Arizona who just rejuvenated his career there. Kane is still decent there. Actually, no, he's still a star. What am I talking about? Taves just had a renaissance year. The past 3 seasons, he had 50 points. This past season, he just hit 79. No, Saad, yeah, he isn't the same ever since he left Columbus, but he's still a 40-point guy. Still can get 15, 20 goals. Yeah, they traded Kazoo, but I don't think that would matter much. So I don't think they should have taken it for. I thought they should have went with Bowen Byram. And I'm kind of surprised the same way for the Avs because they really didn't need a defenseman because they already have the car. Gerard is still a decent defenseman, be a nice half-war defenseman for them. And, Barry and Johnson are still great defensemen too. So, with them taking Byram, I do think that Barry's probably gone. And the Kings got Turco, which I think is a great player for them. They needed another forward, so they got a forward. And I'm pretty sure it was Detroit drafted Cedar. I think that is high for Cedar. I think I had him going to the the Jets at 20, but yeah, he's a great defenseman, but I just don't see the need for him taking 6. I think that they're trying to trade down. There wasn't any takers, so they're like, okay, I guess we should just take him, but I don't. I thought we should have taken a guy like this there, like the Zegras or Matthew Boldy.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't know. My thoughts on the draft is I didn't really mind the pick for Kirby Dach at 3rd and I agree with you. I think the Hawks are really going in a good direction. But in general, a few things that stood out, like you said, Seider. I don't think that was a good pick at all. Now, Steve Yzerman, did such great things with Tampa, so it's hard to doubt him. But I really don't think that was a good pick, especially with so many other good players available. And so yeah, that's the goalie Spencer Knight picked by the Panthers. I don't really understand that either. I know he was very good, but if we're bringing in Bobrovsky, he should be, especially with a huge contract we're going to have to sign him to, he's going to be our goalie for a long time. Even though goalies take a while to develop, I don't really understand that pick.
Well, I would assume. Sorry, go on.
No, that's it.
So, but I would assume that Knight is around 5 years away. So I'm guessing Bobrovsky will be 5 to 6 years. It could be the full 7, but I think I can't talk. Okay, when it's Bobrovsky's final couple of years, say when it gets to year 4, 5, maybe even 6, that's when Knight comes up as the backup. Then when Bobrovsky is contract's done, I'm guessing Knight takes the starter's role, but that's the only way I see it, because if they're going after Bobrovsky, which I think will sign there, and have to be a 5-year deal, then Knight comes up and he's a starter.
Yeah, here's the thing. Honestly, I think that, well, that makes sense. They're going to be paying a lot for a backup if Knight takes over while Bobrovsky's still under contract. And also importantly is that Cole Caulfield was still available, and I really think the Panthers could have used him. So even if he'll be a few years away as well. But anyway, I think that'll be it for the draft. I liked that the Sharks traded down with their 2nd round pick, just because they had so few picks that honestly they just needed to trade down so that they could get more players. And we're going to see some of those players, or I'm going to see some of those players tonight at the Sharks prospect scrimmage. We're recording this on Friday. I don't know when this podcast is going to be up, but so I'm excited for that. And it's too bad that Pavelski is leaving, but I'll get to wear his jersey tonight one last time while he's on the Sharks. So I guess we can talk a little bit about the schedule before we wrap up. So home openers were released. Has the full schedule been released yet?
Yeah, I believe it was released on Tuesday.
Okay, so full schedule out. What are some thoughts on it? Do you have any highlights about what you think of it?
Well, of course, I only remember Edmonton. So actually, let's go on NHL.com right now.
Yeah, I'm on it there. But just about Edmonton, any thoughts about those, important games or ones you're looking forward to?
Honestly, there's a couple weird things in here. There's a couple road trips we go to California and only play like San Jose and LA, then we skip Anaheim, then we go to San Jose to Anaheim, we skip LA. It's so weird. Like, I'm not a tremendous fan of our schedule because it's basically all over the place. Where we start at home against Vancouver and LA, then we're off to New York for a couple of games against the Islanders, Rangers, and New Jersey. Then we're going to Chicago, and we're back home. I just don't like the schedule for Edmonton. But
seems like, like you said, all over the place. And just speaking of all over the place, I actually just, before I continue with the schedule, just want to jump back because I completely forgot about the Kevin Hayes deal, which is one of the biggest deals and I would say a significant overpayment. I didn't mind the Flyers going out and acquiring his rights, but I still think that they should have. I don't mind them getting his rights, but I think they overpaid.
Oh yeah, easily. And I honestly think that somehow it's going to lead into a lockout.
Oh yeah, I
So
completely
if it
agree.
does, then we're going to be going for this.
Yeah.
You're paying a 50-point guy that has hit 20 goals once, $7 million.
Actually, yeah, I'm glad you brought up the lockout thing. And the reason is I saw an interesting tweet, and it said it was talking about the highest paid player in each of the four major sports in 2000 and in now current year. And for pretty much for the NHL in 2000, the highest paid player was Yager at 10.4 million, which was a lot higher than I thought. So I was pretty surprised for that. But for all the other sports, they were pretty similar. But now most of the other sports, their highest paid player is over 30 million, and NHL is just 12.5. So a lot of people were acting like this was a really bad thing, and that they don't like salary cap. No, I love salary cap, and here's why. Because if it wasn't for salary cap, Predators would not have had to trade Subban to get Duchesne. They could have just got them both. So it prevents teams from being able to just spend however much they want, and from big market teams being way better than small market teams.
And also, if we didn't have a cap, there would be no reason for Tampa Bay to trade a guy like JT Miller.
Exactly. They could have kept him and kept their others. So I love a salary cap, and also I think it helps keep ticket prices down too, because if players need to be paid more, then teams need to generate more revenue. So yeah. But anyway, going back to the NHL schedule for viewers in the U.S., just some highlights. The first nationally broadcast game, as always, is the Thanksgiving showdown. We have Rangers versus Bruins the day after Thanksgiving. So that's a big one. And then, of course, the Winter Classic. I'm really happy that it's in Dallas, because it's never in because everyone always complains that it's always in the same spots, and then when the NHL puts it in a different spot, they still complain. Dallas is a very hot place, but in winter, during the last Winter Classic, Dallas was actually had a colder temperature at that time than South Bend, where the last one was. So that's that for that one.
And speaking of schedules, of course, that Danny and I are always interested in the NBC schedule, which was released a bit late last year. It was around August 13th. And, of course, when that's released, I'll probably come back on and talk about my thoughts on that. And, it's always interesting when NBC releases their schedule because, hockey is as big as the market, of course. It's not as big as the market as the NBA or the NFL, so NBC needs to really show a good crop of teams. Of course, we always know that they show Chicago, like you said, in the Winter Classic, it's always been the same teams, the same location. So I'm hoping next year it can be a bit more diverse.
Yes, I completely agree. The one team they show a lot more than I think they deserve is Detroit. They're pretty much a basement dweller, so I don't think they should get shown much at all. Teams I'd like to see more on NBC. I'd like to see the Sharks more, even though it doesn't matter for me. I believe they showed the Kings more than they showed the Sharks last year, so that didn't make too much sense. The Panthers, I think, should be on there more. Definitely, I think the Devils will be on more now that they have Subban and Hughes and Hall. But yeah, we'll see what happens when that gets released, and of course we'll do a show when that happens. And I think that is going to do it for our show. We're approaching an hour, so I think that's a pretty good length. So I hope you guys enjoyed. We're going to be doing one at some point after free agency. Not exactly sure on the exact date, but we'll figure it out, and we'll have all our reactions to the big signings and who goes where. And then just throughout the summer, there's not too much news, but we'll do a podcast. I'm hoping we'll get maybe one in August as well, at least one or two. So something like that. We'll work it out, and we'll talk about all the current news and whatnot. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one and look forward to the next ones. And just talking about my page for a bit, I will be doing more coverage on Shark Source next season than I did this season.
Just one more thing to add, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Peter LeBrun Center in the Athletic that Talbot has agreed to a 1-year deal in Calgary, so I know that Calgary, we all knew Calgary was looking for a goal. We all thought Talbot would be a candidate, and it seems like he actually signed there now, so that'll be official on July 1st, I think.
Another one that breaks during our show, or some near our show or something like that. So yeah, we'll see that. And also, just looking at LeBron, his Twitter feed, we forgot to mention this, but it looks like the Panthers are trying to trade James Reimer. Good luck with that. He's really been a terrible signing for them. All right, and that is going to do it. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Make sure to check out Shaden's Instagram page and YouTube channel. Both will be in the description. And check out my page, Shark Source. And also, stay tuned because I am going to be making another channel called Stadium Source. It's going to be sort of a different kind of channel, more focused on stadiums and stuff for all sports, just because that's something I'm interested in. So keep an eye out for both of those, and I'll see you guys next time.